Did you know that Rapunzel was based on a true life story? What if I told you that the real story of Rapunzel is far darker than the fairy tale we all grew up with? To understand the twisted origins of Rapunzel, make sure you stick around till the end of the video. Nearly everyone knows the fairy tale of Rapunzel. A beautiful girl is kidnapped and trapped in a tall tower by a witch. By the time she's a teenager, her hair is so long it can be used as a rope for the witch to climb up and down the tower. Eventually, a clever prince sees this and makes his way up the tower to meet Rapunzel. They fall in love and he helps her escape. They live happily ever after. This version is the story written into most modern-day children's books and what most of us were likely told as kids, and Disney's animated film Tangled basically follows this storyline as well, but with some slight twists to add more whimsical aspects to the story. Disney's Tangled is a 2010 animated film that reimagines the classic fairy tale of Rapunzel. The story begins with the kingdom's queen giving birth to a baby girl named Rapunzel. During her pregnancy, the queen falls sick and a magical flower known for its healing properties is discovered and used to save her. The flower is protected by a witch named Mother Gothel, who uses its magic to keep herself young. When the baby is born, Mother Gothel kidnaps Rapunzel, believing that the magic in her hair will keep her youthful forever. She hides the girl in a secluded tower without any doors or stairs. Throughout her childhood, Rapunzel is raised in isolation, unaware of her true identity and the world outside. Her only companion is Mother Gothel, who keeps her under strict control and tells her that the outside world is dangerous. Rapunzel possesses long magical golden hair that has the power to heal and rejuvenate when someone sings a special song. On her 18th birthday, Rapunzel expresses a desire to see the floating lanterns that are released into the sky every year to commemorate the lost princess. In an effort to keep her from discovering her true heritage, Mother Gothel continues to discourage her and promises they will go see the lanterns someday. However, Rapunzel is determined. Meanwhile, Flynn Rider, a charming thief, steals a crown from the royal palace and is pursued by the guards. He stumbles upon Rapunzel's tower while fleeing, and after a brief confrontation, Rapunzel captures him and holds him hostage in exchange for his promise to take her see the lanterns. Reluctantly, Flynn agrees and they escape together. As Rapunzel and Flynn embark on their adventure, Rapunzel experiences the world for the first time. They encounter a band of thugs who reveal their softer sides and help Rapunzel find courage. Throughout their journey, Flynn is initially self-serving, but he gradually becomes more selfless as he develops a bond with Rapunzel. Mother Gothel, realizing Rapunzel has run away, tracks them down.
Come with mommy, mother. No!
After a series of adventures, Rapunzel and Flynn finally reach the city where the lanterns are released. Rapunzel sings to Flynn, revealing her dreams and longing for freedom. Their connection deepens and Flynn begins to fall in love with her. There, they share a romantic moment while floating in a boat under the lanterns. However, the harmony is short-lived as Mother Gothel finds them and tricks Rapunzel into returning to the tower. She manipulates Rapunzel's emotion and reinforces the idea that she must stay with her. Flynn, determined to save Rapunzel, returns to the tower, confronting Mother Gothel. During a struggle, Flynn is mortally wounded. Mother Gothel attempts to capture Rapunzel again.
Eugene. No! No! What have you done? What have you done? No! No!
But in the process, she falls from the tower, and Rapunzel is finally free. And in a desperate act of love, Rapunzel uses her hair to heal him, revealing its true powers, a gift from her true identity as the lost princess. She then reunites with her real family, and the truth about her past is revealed. The film concludes as every Disney fairy tale would, with a celebration in the kingdom, where Rapunzel is joyfully reunited with her parents. Rapunzel and Flynn embrace their love and future together. However, the Grimm brothers' fairy tale version of Rapunzel in 1857 gets darker. Disney's Tangled was inspired by the Grimm brothers' fairy tale, Rapunzel. The film's creators drew from the classic story of a girl with magical long hair trapped in a tower, but they added their own twist to create a more modern, adventurous, and comedic version. The Grimm brothers' plot of Rapunzel is much more complex. It begins with a couple living next to a large compound consisting of a vast garden and a tower belonging to a reclusive woman. They have little to do with the woman, whom we later learn is a sorceress who owns the garden and the tower. But soon, the couple finds themselves drawn towards the compound as the wife becomes pregnant and begins to crave a type of salad green which they spot growing in the garden next door. This plant is generally believed to have been the Campanula rapunculus, a salad green known as the bellflower. Bizarrely, the pregnant woman is adamant that she must eat some of the Campanula rapunculus even as she begins to lose weight, threatening the life of the unborn. In despair, her husband agrees to break into the sorcerer's garden to obtain some of the bellflowers, and his first foray is successful. He scales the wall of the compound and finds some of the plants before returning home and giving them to his pregnant wife. But now she becomes obsessed with eating them. In the days that follow, he repeatedly breaks into the compound to obtain more and more of the flower, until one day, while he is escaping from the compound, the sorceress catches him. This act is the genesis of the myth of Rapunzel. The sorceress now insists that the couple hand over their child when it is born as punishment for having broken into her garden. They begrudgingly agree that the child is indeed handed over in due course when a baby girl is born. The sorceress names her Rapunzel after the plant which her mother was so obsessed with eating, and as she grows up, the sorceress locks her up in the tower within the compound. There, she grows up as a teenager with long golden hair. Then, one day, a prince comes through the area and hears Rapunzel singing from the tower. He is entranced by her voice and drawn to see what the source of it is. Eventually, he manages to find his way into the tower, and he and Rapunzel fall in love. Rapunzel has never seen a man before, so she is seduced by the prince and she becomes pregnant. But they must navigate the ill demeanor of the sorceress. When the sorceress finds out about Rapunzel and the prince, she cuts off Rapunzel's hair and casts her out of the tower and the compound altogether. Rapunzel is left to wander the wilderness, seemingly helpless, given that she has not known anything other than the tower and the garden for her entire life. The prince returns and is deceived by the wicked witch, who used the hair she cut from Rapunzel to throw for him to climb up the tower. He falls from the tower while trying to flee from the witch and is blinded. He spends years thereafter wandering the wilderness, but eventually the story has a happy ending. One day, as he is wandering blindly through the forest, they meet each other, having heard each other singing. When they meet, the prince's sight is miraculously restored, and he learns that Rapunzel has given birth to twins, a boy and a girl. The family heads back to the prince's kingdom, where they live happily ever after. The Grimm's brothers' tale that inspired Disney's adaptation is a much darker take on the interpretations of a maiden locked in the tower series. The tale is classified as Arne Thompson Type 310, also called The Maiden in the Tower, which originated in medieval Europe and became more popular again during the early modern period. For instance, the Grimm brothers story is essentially a German rendering of a French fairy tale called Persinette, written by Charlotte Rose de Camon de la Force, published in 1698. With the only plot difference being instead of a sorceress, it was a fairy, and she was the one that takes them to the palace of the prince's father, where they are welcomed home after everything. But the French tale Persinette was itself is an alternative version of the 1634 Italian fairy tale Petrosinella by Giambattista Basil. The first known written version of the Rapunzel story was written in the 1600s by a writer named Giambattista Basil from Italy and was titled Petrosinella. In this version, Rapunzel is sold to an ogress when she was a baby because her mother got caught stealing some parsley from her garden. The baby is born and named Petrosinella after the southern Italy word for parsley. The ogress takes Petrosinella by her hair and locks her in a tower deep in the woods with only a single window. The ogress relies on Petrosinella's extreme long hair to enter the tower. Within the tower, Petrosinella is taught magic arts by the ogress. Just like every other version of the story, Rapunzel meets a prince and plans to escape with him. Stealing 3 magic gallnuts or acorns before climbing out of the tower with a rope ladder, Petrosinella uses the gallnuts as a distraction by throwing them behind her as the ogress chases the couple. The first being turns into a dog that the ogress feeds a loaf of bread. The second becomes a lion that the ogress feeds a donkey from a nearby field, and she takes the donkey's skin as a coat. The third being turns into a wolf that swallows the ogress whole as she is wearing the donkey's skin. With the ogress defeated and the couple free, Petrosinella and the prince get married with the permission of his father. The difference between Giambattista Basil's version from the other renditions of Rapunzel is that those versions does not mention the Rapunzel learning magic arts, nor does it include an escape scene where she uses these powers to save both her and the prince from the villain of the story. Furthermore, Basil does not include Rapunzel's out-of-wedlock pregnancy nor the birth of twins. Interestingly enough, the tragic story of a beautiful princess locked away in a tall tower is based on the real-life story of Saint Barbara, a holy virgin who lived in the 3rd century. Her life is narrated in the medieval book The Golden Legend and has many similarities to the popular adaptations. The actual story is even darker than the Grimm brothers' version, in which the prince seduces Rapunzel instead of saving her. There was a rich man whose name was Dioscorus. This Dioscorus had a young daughter, which was named Barbara, for whom he made a high and strong tower, in which he kept Barbara, to the end that no man should see her because of her great beauty. He commissioned people to build a tower that his daughter would be kept in while he traveled for work. As the tower was built, Barbara was kept on varying levels, and people would bring her essentials of food and get it to her via a basket that she would lower out of the tower. Barbara had been brought up pagan, but one day someone popped a book into her food delivery, which explained what Christianity was. Considering how bored and isolated Barbara was, it was hardly surprising that she was impressed by the thought of a higher being and took to Christian worship. The tower that Barbara was being kept in required some renovations, and the workmen took pity on her, allowing her out of the tower to walk around her father's gardens and talk with them. She managed to convince the men to build 3 windows into the tower rather than 2 in honor of the Blessed Trinity, to represent the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. They did this despite knowing that it would infuriate her father. One can only think she used her feminine charms to get her way. She also managed to sneak in a priest to the tower to christen her. She was now a fully fledged Christian. While this doesn't sound like a big thing to do, this was the equivalent of a teenage rebellion for the time. This broke all the laws within her area. On one of her visits to her father's garden, Barbara smashed all of his pagan statues in an act of defiance, and word spread around about her newfound belief. Her father, eventually returning home, expecting to see his beautiful daughter in the tower, found his gardens destroyed and the tower not built to his specification. On finding out that his daughter had turned to Christianity, he promptly handed her over to the authorities. Barbara was heavily tortured. She was tied to a stake and her flesh sliced open and then salt poured onto her. She refused to renounce Christianity. Barbara died a martyr's death, beheaded by her father. It is said that shortly after Barbara's death, her father was killed by a bolt of lightning. On account of this story, Barbara became a patron saint to be invoked against lightning and explosives, and by extension, she became the patron saint of artillerymen and miners because of their use of explosives in digging. Many of the 33 Chilean miners who were trapped for 2 months underground in 2010 gave thanks to their rescue to the intercession of Saint Barbara. And that is the real story of Rapunzel. Rapunzel was inspired by many past renditions that has been retold up until the point that we see today, but the real story was based on the saint Barbara, who died a martyr's death